Hi, my name is Logan, and in this video, I'll be comparing two different perspectives on the issue of water fluoridation. One perspective supports it, and one questions its modern effectiveness. I'll also talk about how I evaluate the credibility of my sources and how I identify potential bias using guidelines from APA, Reporter Magazine, and UK libraries. After dirty water has gone through the water treatment plant, fluoride is added to public drinking water in the United States and has been for decades to help prevent tooth decay. Since the 1940s, this practice was considered a major public health success. But in recent years, some researchers and organizations have brought into question whether fluoride in water is the best idea, since most people now use fluoride toothpaste and mouthwash daily. That brings us to the two articles I analyzed. I always assumed fluoride was safe because it's pushed by dentists and healthcare physicians, but recently I've become a little skeptical of fluoride, and I wanted to see whether that skepticism was based on evidence or misinformation. The topic of water fluoridation is extremely important because of evidence that we could actually be doing more harm than good by having it in our water. The first article, Why is Fluoride in Our Water?, was published by Johns Hopkins Public Health in 2024. This article frames fluoridation as a public health success story. It claims that adding fluoride to water protects people's oral health when lower income or less access to dental care is of concern. It cites data showing lower rates of cavities in fluoridated communities and highlights support from organizations like the CDC, the World Health Organization. While the article is evidence-based and written by a trusted institution, it's important to acknowledge that it presents fluoride almost entirely positively. Given the industry ties, this could point to confirmation bias, where they end up with a result that they were almost looking for unintentionally. It could also point to conflict of interest or institutional bias towards maintaining traditional public health policies that have been in place for over 70 years. This brings us to our CRAAP way of analyzing sources. The first C is currency. It was published in 2024 in questioning the new administration, both of which prove that it is current. Relevance. It is intended for dentists and policymakers. Authority. It is published by Johns Hopkins Health, which is viewed as credible by most in the medical field. Accuracy. They cite research and cite their sources. The purpose. It is meant to assess concern that fluoride is harmful. The second article, Research Review Contends Fluoride in Water is Less Effective than in 1970s, appeared in ADA News in October of 2024. This article is actually more skeptical of fluoridating the water supply. This is because fluoride toothpaste and other products already provide strong protection, so adding it to water is unlikely to make as much of a difference as before. This could also be seen as confirmation bias because of industry ties, just like the Johns Hopkins Health article. It is possible it did a good job of avoiding selection bias because of the number of studies it analyzed. The ADA still supports fluoridation overall, but the article encourages ongoing evaluation and updated research to see if it is still necessary. What makes this article interesting is that it shows a shift within the scientific community. Even organizations that originally promoted fluoridation are now questioning its value. So, looking at the CRAAP guideline, the currency, it was published in 2024 and reviewing modern research, both of which prove that it is current. Relevance, it is intended for patients or parents who might have a child they are taking care of. Authority, it is published by the American Dental Association, which is viewed as credible by most in the dentistry field. Accuracy. They cite research and sources. Purpose. It is meant to reinform that fluoride is beneficial. Evaluating credibility and bias. To make sure I'm interpreting these articles fairly, I use 3 supporting sources to guide my evaluation. First, the APA's General Principles for Reducing Bias from 2024 helps me recognize where bias might appear, not to remove it, but to identify it. For example, I looked for emotionally charged language or one-sided arguments. I also used Taylor Sinclair Goeth's 2019 article titled War, Propaganda, and Misinformation, The Evolution of Fake News. This article helped me remind myself how easily public narratives can become distorted, even by credible outlets. This helped me question each source's motivations. For example, whether public health institutions might be defending a long-standing policy, or whether critics might be appealing to skeptics, or a lobbyist, or a company has presented an offer to leave out certain data and details. I used UK Library's Research 101 guide from 2025 and its CRAAP test, which stands for currency, relevance, authority, accuracy, and purpose, which we've been talking about for the others. And so this is kind of a comparison between both sources. The currency, both articles are recent, as of last year. Relevance, both directly discuss fluoride's role in public health. Authority, both Johns Hopkins and the ADA are reputable organizations, especially in this field. Accuracy, both cite scientific research. Purpose, Hopkins aims to reassure the public. The American Dentistry Association aims to inform professionals. Applying this test helped me understand that while both sources are deemed credible by the public, they have discrepancies and funding or industry pressure that could very well contribute to those discrepancies. In conclusion, both sides rely on valid evidence. One focuses on long-term population health benefits, and the other emphasizes how fluoridation might have less of a place in modern times. Reality is likely somewhere in between. Fluoridation has been beneficial historically, but its future role should be reevaluated with updated science. After looking into both articles, I've come to the conclusion that both organizations have potential conflicts of interest and industry ties, and that further research is ideal to see if it is actually safe. Using the CRAAP framework, we learned evaluating the sources was much more organized and easy to keep track of. Using bias-aware principles, media literacy strategies, and the CRAAP checklist, I was able to critically assess different articles, which is a skill that is just as important as the topic itself. Thank you for watching.